What's going on out there, everybody? It is Ron Brown, LMC, the People's Fitness Professional. My co host isn't here right now. He will be on in approximately 30 minutes. Dr. Paul Dyer just was on and he's out now. I don't know what happened exactly, but he will be back on. Today, we're talking about unlocking the power of your mind, the science of emotional intelligence, and we have the brother Dr. Paul Dyer back. What's going on, brothers? How you doing today? You hear me? You hear me? All right. Dr. Paul Dyer doesn't hear me right now. Okay, now he hears me. Still doesn't hear me. Still hear me? Yep. Not yet. Not yet. Check, 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 check. Well, today we're talking about the science of emotion, unlocking the power of the mind. Dr. Paul Dyer is on today, and he will be on every 7 p.m. Monday evening. Also, keep in mind we have Brother Cujo, who we do podcasts with at 8 o'clock after this one. However, that one will be posted on Saturday. That one will be posted. So look for Cujo every Saturday at 8. No, sorry. Look for Cujo every Saturday, I think at 12 or whatever the flyer says. I have a flyer up there, a marketing flyer, you guys. I hope you're checking it out. We got Awareness Daily on the check-in, Peace to Awareness Daily, and whoever else that is watching the live show right now. As I said, we're talking about the emotions, the science of emotion, unlocking the power of your mind. Now, the science of emotion. I want you to explain to the people, Dr. Paul Dyer, what is an emotional scientist exactly?
So I study the chemical component to a thought. I study the physiological component, all the physical attributes to a thought.
Mm-hmm.
That's an emotional scientist. Because I've studied neuropsychology, because I'm into brain science, which is study of the brain. But I am also into cellular science, cellular biology. So I want to study the chemistry and the chemistry wave particles of the brain and why it and how it does.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I apply my physics, because I'm also a theoretical physicist, to the brain like it is space, to understand that science of a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the simplest way is that we know thoughts have frequencies and waves, right? It creates words, creates vibration, creates. So that's where the emotion, that's where the scientist comes in to really explain how it is with its lower form of things. Yeah. It's not just like, I believe in your thoughts and I care about your feelings and I want you to open up and
right. Right. So now you're talking about the chemical responses that come from thoughts, right? That's like the reactions, the reaction that your brain gives, excreting chemicals throughout the brain and body from the actual thought. Now, you're saying waves come from that thought as well, correct?
Right. Because that's how things, it's a signal. So everything that happens in your body, they don't have they have a cell charge because they have what you call cell towers in your head. That's what most people now know as the chakras, right? I think here is
Jenny Johnson.
Jeannie.
Yes.
Hi.
Johnson.
So you're just gonna have to, thank everyone from New York perspective, but Miss Johnson, introduce yourself.
Hi, well, I'm Jeannie Johnson. How is everybody today? So I'm
Good. How you doing,
good.
Jeannie
I'm
Johnson?
with a client. So I am a CEO and founder for Love and Psych, and I'm a psychotherapist in New York and Minnesota, and here invited to the show. How's everybody?
Now, yeah. So I've been trying. She's very busy,
I know.
and I will say this: she is my niece.
Oh, she's your
So
niece. Ah,
yeah.
hey,
Hey.
hey. Family affair. Family affair. What's going on, Niecy?
Hi.
Yeah. So, but because we have, and I'll get back into. I was talking to them, Jenny, about the science part about emotions,
Oh,
right?
okay, sure.
We get into retraining your brain and rethinking, reprogramming.
Yeah.
But I asked you on today in your limited time because I know you're so busy in New York and you're ripping and running, and I want people to really get a hold of you because along with you and other psychiatrists, therapists, you guys are doing some amazing work out there for people who ask for help,
Yes. Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So I just want you to let people know how you're helping them in a way so they can sit, in that little short.
Hello? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. So, I have a private practice. So I've been working for a long time in New York. I just started my private practice about 3 years ago or so. So a lot of my framework is one-to-one. But recently we've been expanding the brand and getting into more psychoeducational work for people who are very much motivated to care for themselves and to understand further the process of what it is to seek wellness, because it looks very different. And when you talk about wellness from a systematic perspective, it looks very uniform. So the hard thing about that is it means, waiting oftentimes in a line and waiting to be assigned to someone and waiting to have someone be able to look on at you and um, look onto your situation from the perspective of a very cerebral, clinical space, where when you learn more to take care of yourself, you start to understand more about how you tick, about your intuitive sense of being, about your intuitive sense in wellness. And so that's some of what I teach, right? It's helping people to look inward and really understand what grounds them on their own, what regimens they can create for themselves to treat themselves and love themselves well, and what ways they can use systems as an augmentation to that rather than a primary resource to that. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah,
Makes a
Jenny. I
lot of
mean,
sense.
you're so elegant. We look so raw compared to you. I know Ron and I were thinking, but maybe we got to dress up. I feel underdressed.
You didn't tell me what to wear. You told me nothing.
No, but there is a lot of masculine word because men speak it. It comes
Yes,
off masculine,
true.
right? So
Very true.
whoever's our audience is and listening to this, we always really talk about the stuckness of Black people, the stuckness of how we are really so broken as a community and broken within ourselves, and yet we just can't afford to get to a therapist like you. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know, it's just that's the difficult part.
Yeah.
And we have said many times, or I've said many times, is and many of us said many times in a lot of these shows, is that someone needs to just ask for help.
Yes.
And they don't know how, they won't, they can't.
Mhm.
But if we don't, as Black folk, we're going to annihilate ourselves. And
Absolutely.
I'll get into that later in the show.
No, I got you. And I think asking for help is important as well, because then you find out that people, therapists like me, are actually more accessible, and that we create pro bono funds where we
No,
allow.
no, you look fancy. You don't look like we can afford you.
You don't look like you would care. I think it goes. I think the psychology goes beyond that and is
Yeah,
worth that in some ways, because what I hear is, I don't think someone like you would care about someone like me, and I don't
yeah.
think someone like you would even take someone like me on. Where it's like, no, I actually created an entire pro bono fund that people who are more well off give into. They give gifts to, that I utilize so that I can treat people who don't have enough money. have men that I see for $100 a session instead of my $200 fee. I have couples that I see for a reduced rate. Like us who are in this position, who are in the helping profession, want to help and want to be available and want to be accessible. And so we make it a point to ensure that's true. Now, that's not true for all therapists by any means, but myself as a Black therapist who loves my community and loves those who look like me and who need that influence in the same way that I do make myself available to those individuals because it's important.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So you were mentioning, about taking care of yourself, self-care.
Yep.
So that seems to be like the main focus or one of the main focuses of your program.
Yes.
So how do you go about taking care of yourself or loving yourself? Because in my mind, I think I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it could be also, selfish,
Yeah.
as well. It could become toxic. So how are you saying, pardon me, am I right? Am I wrong? How do you see what I'm saying right now?
I don't think you're wrong at all. I mean, I think some people have the understanding that self-care is very superficial. And so what they describe as, well, Jeannie, I get up in the morning and I brush my teeth and I wash my face and I dress myself really nicely. And maybe if I'm a female, I get my nails done and my hair done. And, I make sure that I always smell good. And when I go out, I look great. And that's wonderful. Appearance is a great thing. It's a wonderful thing to take care of ourselves. Hygiene is very important. Some people need to understand and hear that above other people. However, self-care is important it means also self-discipline. It means also I am who I say I am. So if I say I'm the type, if I say I'm the type who is forthcoming and transparent, that's how I exist. Self-care is also.
So here's the thing. We were talking to a friend of ours, and he came on the show, Dr. George Frazier, and he had said, the family the family core is broken. We are just shattered. There is no core. It's systemic throughout the region. But now if we say Black men need self-care, and they say this to a woman, it seems like selfish. So how can that be relayed to a woman in a masculine tone when it doesn't often get felt like it's a power over system, but that's how it comes across.
I got you. So the understanding is I'm speaking to women from the male perspective inside of a masculine form, which includes something that is more from a man's perspective, direct, maybe more logical, maybe it speaks more from a space of oftentimes it's provision, if I'm being honest. So I'm saying I need self-care, and what that self-care means is I need to be by myself, or what it means is I need time to rest, or I can't be inside of that provision that I have maybe taken to be my own identity. So when I need a break from that, it feels like I'm being selfish because I'm not giving that part of myself that I told you that I would.
See, I want to add to that. I want to say, if you can express to a partner that you need self-care, explain what that care is.
Right.
Explain what that if you're honest, says, no, I just want to go chill by myself. That's not explaining to your partner that you're in self-care.
Right.
It just sounds like you want to be alone.
And that's okay.
That's okay, but that's not self-care. If you're talking about, I'm struggling with things, because I think your partner still needs to say, I'm here for you, but I'm here for you when you get ready with after your, you know what I mean? So explaining what your self-care is. So this way, when you tell your partner or a close relation, I'm in self-care mode, it looks differently than something else.
Yeah. Recuperation is a part of that, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And recuperation is a part of that. So spending time in solace and in solitude, spending time replenishing yourself is a part of that, especially when you are a man who is a part of this mindset that my masculinity is encompassed by provision. Provision is an action-oriented space, right? Like I provide for my family meaning I work, I do whatever I need to do to ensure that everybody's safe, that everyone's cared for. I spend a lot of my time likely in company with other people inside of that space of provision. So when I need alone time to think, to unwind, to relieve tension somehow, and a lot of people, a lot of men specifically, work out, they like to be very active even when they are inside of that space of self-care and by themselves. But that, yeah, I can see how the understanding of that would be that I'm maybe neglecting that role in some ways, and so it's seen as I'm being selfish, where it's not
Right.
really not the reality.
Right. Right. Now, can you give me some other examples of self-care? I know I would say therapy will be one of them, right?
I would say so, yes. And, self-care, self-exploration. I would say meditation is a big part of self-care, huge part of self-care.
Mm.
Talking about, I think Uncle Paul came on and said some things about talking about the science of emotions, right? And sort of these elements of science include neural pathways that we utilize to make decisions, right? We have specific neural pathways that we use very often in our lives that we get used to using consistently, that sometimes they worked for us to get out of situations of trauma, or they worked for us when we were overworking ourselves and pushing ourselves too far. And then we grow out of those spaces and we transition to newer, safer spaces, and we still use those same neural pathways. When we meditate, we open up new realms and new ways and visualizations, and in using our brains to use new neural pathways for our emotional states and for the newer work we want to invite into our lives. So meditation is a huge, huge, huge thing that people need to, I think, learn more about and engage in more if they want to practice good self-care. And I think that's especially men who are especially cerebral.
Right.
And
Right.
tell me if I need to make that small for your audience.
No.
Okay.
Here's it. I keep going back to. I know you don't have time because I know you got a patient coming in, and being prepared for your patient takes some space. It really does. And I know when I have back-to-back people coming in, it's that space, whatever I have to do, cleanse the space from before, cleanse who I was, my notes, and all these other things. So if the Black culture is a child, and we are needing of a mother and father, metaphorically, we have been bastards for so long. How are we going to grow as adults when we're so unified broken?
I mean, I have an answer for that.
Yeah.
I think that as a people, we need to make a flip mentally, because we're used to saying that we're broken. We're used to
Right.
that we're hurting. We're used to saying that we're not doing this and we're not doing that. If we could, positive affirmations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That that's just maybe saying that maybe
We won't stay broken no more.
maybe we're not broken.
Right. We're just
having
building.
Right. We're having it. We're humans,
Mhm.
and we're going through motions just like other humans are.
Yes.
And each human family, their troubles are significant to their their culture, their region, etc. So I think we're all going through things, and we're not alone.
Mhm.
And if we look at it from that perspective, and get out of the mindset of saying that we are broken, we are struggling, we are we're from the hood, we're from the ghetto.
Yeah.
You we got to fight. We always got to fight about something. Maybe that's the mindset that we have to overcome.
I agree entirely. I think that is a language that we hear often, that Black people are broken, or that they're inherently accustomed to trauma, they're inherently accustomed to showing up affected and defective in some ways, and it isn't a truth. We are all people of all races experiencing the spectrum of humanity, and the spectrum of humanity is such that we all experience some level of trauma, we all experience some level of harm, We all experience, certain levels of defeatist mentality and barriers, and Black people have their specific kinds of barriers because there are systemic elements that exist that have worked against them for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it is a different type of truth, but it is all lived in the spectrum of humanity, and we're all living it out and doing the best that we can. And we are absolutely not broken or beaten or defeated, and that is evident by the excellence that we see all over the world all the time in the name of Black people.
There's an uptick with people seeking out mental health. I think it's just people who are reaching out finally.
Mm-hmm.
But what I have found in the uptick, it's the people who have been waffling 10 years ago.
Mm.
That's what I've noticed. Like
Really?
people who have kind of, if you take a snapshot 10 years ago in their life, it was in that time they started talking about it.
Yes.
And now they're reaching out. So we're talking to the people who might wait 10 years from now to do it. What do we say to them besides don't wait? I mean, we could say that until we're blue in the face, but I don't think our social curve is going to be able to take your 10-year wait to wait to where we're moving.
So your hope is, what can we say in order to give them a sense of urgency so that they decide to take those steps now?
Right, because without being an alarmist,
of course not. Yeah, I think
let's say we go into a civil. Let's say we go into a civil unrest in 2032.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. If those people are waffling and they're waiting for the 10 years, well, they missed that chance in 2034 to be like, I want to see some help. But now in 2032, we're in shooting each other, we're harming it, we don't know where to lay our heads, we don't know who friendlies, or because my mind is still so I needed help.
I think
now I'm back in turmoil and fear, and
I think that's the what you're saying to me. The antidote for that is letting people know that therapy isn't just for crisis, right? We don't just go to therapy because we're in crisis. A part of the reason that I suggest things like meditation are because I recognize, like I said, that we use certain neural pathways for survival, right? There's a way that I needed to behave. There's a way that I needed to act. There's a way that I needed to show up in order to curb the effect and survive, the effects of trauma and survive. Therapy isn't just for survival. It's not just for crisis. It's for being intentional and living life intentionally and seeing what exists for me in my current form. How do I exist in my current form? Unaffected, uninfluenced by anyone else. And then what can I exist as if I do have some help, if I do have someone who can say, hey, actually, I'm noticing you're doing this way, and you're hitting a lot of walls before you thrive, right? Because that's true for a lot of Black people, right? The levels to which they are, first off, just able to compete with other races as a whole and just able to show up excellently is like phenomenal to me. The level of barriers that exist and the level of ways that they can show up and perform it's outrageous. Imagine what that looks like when you couple that with work where you're being much more intentional, and maybe instead of choosing those ways of being that were so complex in some ways, and
someone actually feeling like they're loved.
Exactly. How does that change things? And I'm going to tell you, as someone who sees it every single day, it changes things in a big way.
Now, I want to go back to self-care, right?
Sure.
So self-care, we spoke about meditation, we spoke about working out, we spoke about, having alone time.
Sure.
And what are some other examples of self-care?
Absolutely. I think engaging in community is one of the greatest that as far as a form of self-care. Being immersed in community and being immersed in support and being a part of support can be huge as far as caring for self is concerned. one of the greatest things that you can have in your life is being connected.
So my greatest one, but this is delicate, is releasing your erogenous zones.
Okay.
I don't want to say the simplest way is what, Dr. P? Is sex, but it's not just it's
intimacy.
not.
I heard intimacy.
Yes, but the intimacy has to be able to release all the zones.
So like being aligned in your chakras in the okay.
Because that's what happens in intimacy.
Sure.
Things get released that there is no bike or no physical training.
Okay.
Because this is because of the way the body is a receiver and transmitter. This releasing in itself that's self-care. It's unimaginable what it does or can or has can do for you. But the problem is that if your mindset really is, I'm going to get off, then you do worse damage to both of the people involved.
Well, because that's not intimacy. That is
but it's actually but it becomes poison for the other person.
Well, and for yourself, right?
And for yourself more than if it's almost like, think of it more. I mean, it's so bad what it could do negatively to you. It's like shooting heroin and then shooting more heroin. It's like you're going to die, but you're going to die, right? I mean, that's how negative it is if you're with someone and you're not aligned.
I think we all know, or maybe this isn't a known, and maybe this is something just to talk about, and maybe Ron can speak to this as well. When you're connecting with another person, you're opening yourself up physically, emotionally, and whatever you believe, whether you believe in the chakras, whether you believe you're in religiosity, whether you believe in the physiological exchange of biological material, whatever it is, there is no longer just you. And when there is no longer just you, it means you are taking in the entities of someone and something else. So if you are not aligned, if you do not feel a sense of connection, if you do not feel a sense of, it doesn't have to be longevity, so to speak, but it does have to be a sense of heightened importance and significance and care for the experience. Yes, it is going to be detrimental. Absolutely.
Now to take things back to self-care, you've explained a few things. Now you were getting ready to go into something else besides self-care. Did you have anything else that you were going to speak on?
Oh, yes. Well, I was talking about, I think I was talking about community in some ways, since I was talking about what it looks like to connect. And I think that oftentimes in our society, what we talk about when we talk about connection, or what we think about when we think community, is what can be done for us, and sort of what elements of community and resources we can siphon for ourselves, versus prepping ourselves to be good in community, versus prepping ourselves to be good in connection. So there's a big difference between me wanting to be in community because I want friends, right? I want like good family. I want people to be supportive of me. I want them to understand me so that when I need help, they're available. And in prepping self to be that for others. So being mindful and vigilant about what those in your life need, listening, to hear what specifically resonates with those who you're in community with, being a resource, which means pouring into yourself, right? Educating yourself, nourishing yourself, so that you can be a resource for others to tap into. I would say, people like you, obviously very educated people like my uncle, very educated, understand the nuances and complexities of community, and understand what it means to be a part of the greater good, being a part of the greater good means I have an understanding of systems. I analyze systems. I look at them and I look at those complexities. I take that in and then I make it palatable for other people who don't do this professionally, right? I make it something that they can eat. I make it something that they can understand, so that they don't have to. I make other people sort of breathe easier in me educating myself, but I always bring it back. So wherever I go, however far I go, whatever rooms I end up in, whatever awards I get, I still bring it back. And congrats on your award, because I did not get to say that to you face to face. So.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But you said something. She said something really small. I hope people didn't miss it. But there's two types of community. I mean, of how you could be in community.
Mm-hmm.
You could just allow community and be a part of it. You don't have to be so much of everything. But to be part of it, it means to align yourself with that. I mean, it doesn't, and don't look at aesthetics. We got to stop thinking of how aesthetically we visualize things and saying, I don't want to live next to this park, this whatever, but the community is people. It's not material, right? See if you can see the smiles in your area. If not, create one.
Mm-hmm.
Create that smile. Just someone you notice probably so often that you've never have to say hello to, but there's a friendly gesture. That's community still. And when you allow yourself, and that's what took me off into intimacy with a partner, or however you see it,
Mm-hmm.
is that it's part of that alignment. When you think about self-care, it's actually putting all things into an alignment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as far tentacle-ish as people might think it is. Like, I play softball. No, that's part of that physicalness that needs to come into your core. Or I read. That's a tentacle to you cerebrally coming. You're still pulling everything in intentionally into an alignment.
Mm-hmm.
That if you do all those different things, that is the self-care. I think, Ron, you're talking because it aligns it all.
Okay, got you. Now I want to go into the founder of Love and Psych.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why Love and Psych?
Why Love and Psych? Because love is the key to all things, and relationships and love are just one of the pillars of the human perspective and the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And psych, obviously, because my specialty is in therapy, and I was trained in psychiatry, and I've worked in it my entire life, and I have a reverence not only for its history and both the good and the bad of its history, but also for how it has transformed and has arisen as something so powerful and as a tool of such growth for so many.
Now, I want you, if you can, explain love in community. Okay, so pardon me. I don't know why that's happened.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay, so love, right?
Yeah.
So you can there's a love between you and your partner, and there's a love between you and your friend,
Right.
love between you and your mom, dad, siblings, etc. What are the differences in the love?
See, and I don't.
I have to jump in there before there's a difference.
But
to me, there is no difference. That's all I gotta say. People
Yeah.
like it. So let Jenny answer that.
we are aligned. There is no difference. I do not see a difference in the love in those perspectives. Actually, I find people live in a deficit because they think there is.
And there isn't.
And I think it's why they have this heightened degree of a sense of urgency and a longing for romantic love, is because they haven't recognized that all of those loves of family, of friends, of self, of partner, etc., are the same.
But wouldn't the love between you and your partner be different from you and your siblings or parents? And I'm saying that because, or maybe I'm saying that because of the physical connection.
That's a
The
different
physical,
interaction, right? It's a
Yeah.
different interaction. It's not necessarily a different love.
Love.
It's you looking to make love quantifiable, right? And it's the way many people live their lives, right? Looking to make love quantifiable, looking to make love something that is measurable in some ways and something that is meant for comparison. People say this all the time. Well, you're supposed to love your spouse more than you love your family, or more than you love your mother, or you're supposed to love your spouse more than you love your kids. I've heard this argument like perpetuated all the time, when in all actuality, love is love.
Mm-hmm.
Love is an entity that we are all perfectly capable of, made from. We carry it into every room that we go into. It's the light, it's the smiles, it's the joy, it's all of those things that you express. It's living in purpose, like on purpose. And I think people, when they want to make it quantifiable, they say things like, the way that I love my mom is somehow supposed to be distinguished from the way that I love my partner, when in all actuality, it is just in the interactions. The interactions are different, right? I'm obviously, there's a physical way of being with my partner that I'm not going to be with my mother or with my father, son, or whoever else.
right? But I would say, um, aren't there levels and
See,
like the deepness? Like
I think
some
you're
people,
you're still stuck on.
no, but some people. Okay, so like uh, I would say I would love certain women more than
Mhm.
other women. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So again, when you love,
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about now how to another.
Say that again.
So how I love my child, or how I show my love to my child, that's how I multiply or make love to my child. I'm making more of love to my child, so he based me as dad or whatever, dad, right? That's my child. That we're making it together.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
So my love is the same for all who I touch. I I make it differently with them. If you love, you're going to always make love. How you make love to a thing is different.
Mhm.
And I think people get stuck on comparison to the car, to the wife, to the mother-in-law, to my mother, to my brother. You're all different people. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything with my child. I'm going to do with my mate. I personally, but that doesn't, but love is, that's why she said, love is it. Love
Yeah.
is it.
I think you're talking about the differences in ways of expressing love and
Mm-hmm.
interacting and connecting in love.
Yeah.
And
I'm talking about feeling.
yeah, you're like, my feelings of love would be deeper or higher,
Right.
or conceptually there's some quantifiable difference between the way that I love my son versus the way that I love my wife. And that's
Mhm.
what I'm talking about. Is I
Right.
need to have some measurable sense of it. I do love, someone said, free of possessiveness. I thought that was
Right.
really pretty, really good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay, so psych. Now, what are your credentials in that realm? And you said you studied that your whole life. I mean, what was your journey like? Where are you from?
Well, I'm originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's my
Mhm.
hometown.
Nice.
I live in New York now. I moved to New York when I was 17, 18 or
Mhm.
so. And being a student my whole life just means I grow up and I live on the spectrum of humanity, right? And until we decide on our professions and on what we want to do for our lives, we're students of life. So we're gaining experiences and understanding people and relationships from the time we're yay high. So I say my whole life because it's literally, I believe, has been my whole life. Now, concentrated study includes when I became an adult, obviously. So I have a bachelor's of science degree in psychology. I have a master's degree in advanced clinical practice social work with a specialty, like I said, in advanced clinical practice. So it means practicing in therapy was always the goal. Healing was always the goal. You have to then become licensed in that field specifically, then be independently functioning, and get another license in that context, and then you could be licensed wherever you want to be licensed. So now I practice independently, but I spent my entire career, for the most part, in hospitals. So I worked a lot with people who were in the highest degree of distress you'll see. The highest degree of distress means I'm unable to now live on my own. Like I can't function in the community. So I need to be inpatient. So inpatient care is like in hospital. For some people it's inpatient at like partial hospitalization. So sometimes I'm in a very structured environment.
She
Sometimes
works in the crazy ward.
they used to call them psych wards. Now they call them units.
I know.
Yeah, they now call them units, right? So I used to work there for many years. I stopped that, like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, so I could pursue my private practice and start to see people who were deciding on care versus people who there wasn't any decision any longer. Like the decision for the most part was just, I can't function on my own. I need help and I need to spend time away from the community.
Okay. So you said you worked in a hospital and you were dealing with people who were under high stress and different situations, scenarios. And how would you service them? How would you bring them back to life, so to speak?
Sure. So there was a lot of, first off, it's evaluating them, being that first step to care is giving an evaluation and helping them to understand what's going on with them. Many people are in crisis, and I think that they recognize that there's something really wrong that's happening, but until they sit down and talk with you and talk through what's actually happening to them, they really haven't necessarily even begun processing what's happening for them. I've had so many people who they knew life was out of control, but until we started to have a conversation about how life was out of control and what exactly was happening, and I helped them get a better understanding of the symptomatology, they were, pretty confused as to what was going on with their lives, and some even very resistant to getting care because they're like, everything's fine. Meanwhile, they just lost their spouse. They haven't gotten out of bed in 3 weeks. They haven't washed themselves, bathed themselves in that amount of time. They've lost significant amounts of weight, and they're just like, everything's good. I'm fine. Well, maybe not. So the first step in that was just helping them to process what exactly it was they were going through and helping them realize that this situation has become untenable. The second steps to that are enacting then a treatment program, enacting a treatment plan that's specifically tailored to them and whatever their needs are. So talking through what that looks like, helping them to understand what would be a part of those elements and where they have room to make decisions as to whether this is the right element or that one is the right element, versus where it's sort of like, this is non-negotiable. This is something that we would need to see happen, especially when you're in a hospital. There are much more stringent rules around, how someone has to present in order to be discharged from a hospital.
This is what's going to help people. So what she does on that part, I can teach you the science of how your cells are how they're activating in that crisis or in your process that she met you at. So I can see the science. I could see, the brain chemistry. I could, the body's chemistry. So that's where my specialty comes in with emotional science and how it affects the different organs in the bodies. And yeah.
Got you.
So, yeah. Does that make sense? So when people come to her, they're in a crisis. I can tell you what the brain is doing in that crisis.
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I can see how the different the things are blocked, or the things aren't transmitting, or the things are not firing the way they're supposed to. And then, so yeah, so self-care brings you back to the balance part on a where you go outward part, and
And
then
the
an inner
physiological level.
balance. Yeah,
Okay.
physiological, and then yeah.
Yeah.
So let's have a little fun real quick. I know I know you have to go. Um, let's have a little fun. So I'm your patient. I'm your patient, Jeannie,
Yay!
and I'm your patient, Dr. Paul. Okay. You're working together with me.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I am a person who wants to be basically a prominent figure in the so-called Black community. And I want to also do it while making a lot of money, because I know me having a lot of money, I can also help the community. So I'm like working myself like a madman,
Hmm.
and all day, every day, constantly. And I feel like I have to do this every day, all day. Can you explain what that's about there, Jeannie?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think overfunctioning, hyperfunctioning is generally a hallmark of individuals who feel deeply insecure and who,
Ooh.
yeah, who often overcompensate many times in their lives. So I might assume things about you that are something that might be accustomed to your upbringing. So maybe when you were growing up, you were taught that being productive was like the only way to be. You already had some mentality about money and being valuable, and how the ways in which you can enact change or help people is only through being rich, right, and having a lot of money, right, which is that's not a reality, right? That's a cognitive distortion that you built at some point, that created for you this idea that if I don't exist in that certain way, then I can't be valuable. So money, productivity, all of this equals value. And so I'm overworking, over functioning in order to create the veneer that I'm a worthwhile person.
Mm.
So now, when you kind
Oh, wait,
after
wait, 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 Dr. Paul Dyer. Hold on. Let's
no,
go.
hold on, no,
Well,
because you're still the same patient. She's got to go. So
Oh,
what
it's
you would
okay. I'm at 8 o'clock. We're okay.
okay?
oh,
So
okay.
what I would do is give you a workup to do, or I would talk to you, and certain ways you answer things lets me know what parts of the brain what part of the brain you're using. So that would be how my intake form would look, right? So different things that you say by me talking to you, I'm looking at some physiological signs of what is firing, what isn't firing, what is slow, and things of perceptuary, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that gives me I start mapping your brain off of a conversation. Now the other part is I could do a scan too, just on different things, but that would be just in the office, and then what I get a rundown after our conversation and your conversation with Jenny, and put together, the chemical map of what your body's doing with the conversation you're having. That's the workup.
Okay. So this is what I'm trying to get to is
Yeah.
she's already said her piece as far as like where she would think this is all coming from, my drive to be a
Mm-hmm.
leader and make money and such.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say, being that like I work a lot, what part of the brain and chemical responses do I get from doing all of this, having this type of lifestyle?
Like, again, for me, I need to find out where it's coming from. Like
Mm-hmm.
like like you're already thinking it, right? So what other parts of the brain that isn't being used? Why is it digging so deeply in that part of the brain? Where does it connect to? Gives me a history of the beginning of where this originally started from.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, I would say, and maybe this is something that you could speak to as well, Uncle Paul. Sometimes people, when they have these issues with self worth, or when they have the issues of like wanting to be high achievers. There is a reward system that they achieve based on having greater accomplishments. So some people, I mean, if we're talking about like neurotransmitters, neuroreceptors in the brain, right? Things like dopamine and serotonin are often fed whenever we are accomplishing. So, you know, someone who gambles a lot and then like has a big payout, or someone, the way people are attached to their phones and attached to like receiving any kind of like positive messages, likes and follows and things like that on the phone. Like these are things that when you're living your life inside of a reward system and looking to maybe climb the ladder, like this very high achieving person you're describing would be, some of that achievement could maybe come from that kind of space, or it could come from a reward system such as dopamine overload types of systems. I mean, he would have to know and understand your psychology further, obviously, to make those connections. But I mean, there's so many things you could assume in those cases.
Right. I think me personally, I'm not not to say I'm not cocky or anything like that. I'm not insecure really about anything, right? My thing is, I think is more environmental. It's like, so I grew up in Harlem. So in Harlem, we learn a lot about Black history, and we learn a lot about, you know, just being industrious.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, I mean,
So
I think
that's like
I
our
think you're
culture.
yeah, I mean, your environment is like Renaissance, right? That's the
Mhm.
historical context of Harlem. I think Renaissance, but when I think Renaissance, I think literature, I think poetry, I think art, I think, and none of those types of professions that had huge impacts on community made lots of money. So the idea that you developed somehow, and I didn't know this was you who was our prototype, our study here, but now that the cat's out of the bag, okay, sure. You know, I think the fact that you develop sort of this attachment to money, to me, says there's something beyond just this idea of being industrious, right? There's
I grew up poor. I grew up poor.
okay. I'm just making this, yeah, okay. I got you. And that's okay, right? That's all good.
Right.
I grew up poor, single mom raised, okay? I got you. I'm with you there, right? But also, we know the secret, which is even when you grow up poor, you can still do great things. You can still do big things. I'm not afraid of ever going back to being poor because I know that I can survive that and I can thrive throughout that. It's not part of my makeup to say that I need to be rich in order to be valuable, in order to touch community. Is it a great thing? Is it a bonus? Absolutely. Will I likely be rich? Will I likely be wealthy? Absolutely. In that the abundance that I know that I have and I seek already exists within me. You already have these resources, right? You already come from this background where you've created something out of nothing, like that type of entrepreneurial, that type of enterprising means it's on its way. It's already you. So I got what you're talking about. But that's what I'm seeing in the psychology, just based off a precursor, right? Just based off these little nuances of you.
Right. And we got Canalan Moores in the building. Everything is within. That's more with science. Yeah, that's peace. That's peace. If you have any questions in the chat, put them in the chat right now. So now, I mean, I don't have any more questions. I mean,
no, I'm so glad, Ginny, and openly and publicly, I'm so proud of you and all the things you have done and will continue to do. You're just a bright shining star, like all you guys, though. But you guys are all doing your thing, man. It's awesome.
Love you. Thank you so much.
Love you too.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm sorry it's a little late getting out of my session, but it has been
No.
pleasure. Such a pleasure.
so now tell the people like your social medias, how to reach you, and things like that.
Sure. So first off, you can reach me on Instagram. I'm For Love and Psych. At For Love and Psych. You can reach me. I have my own website. It's www.forloveandpsych.com. It's getting revamped, so it'll soon be much more automated, but it's there. So you can link with me that way. You can link with me on LinkedIn. I'm Jeannie Johnson, LCSW, MSSW. You can reach with me via email as well if you are old school, and it's info@forloveandpsych.com. Or you can just give me a call, 914-875 888-242-2417. And that is my obviously my work phone. So feel free to reach out that way as well.
Yeah, fellas, don't blow a phone.
Oh, that's okay. She probably gets a ton of that anyway. There's no
I do,
stopping that.
unfortunately, but
It's okay.
don't get your feelings hurt. I don't
Don't get right. Right. She still knows how to ball them up though, so don't get it twisted.
Listen, it never leaves you.
Yes. Thank you guys for coming out this evening. This was great, Dr. Paul Dyer. We need a woman. We have
It's
this
different.
whole podcast is men. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not
it's
bad.
different.
I love the guys.
Love that. Yeah.
Love the guys, man. But some feminine energy. We needed that. So and plus she's educated. She's great at what she does, and she has a lot of experience as well. So that's a plus.
I still, the one thing before we have a little bit more time is that we're going to keep breaking down, reprogramming the brain, reformatting what you think, because the only way we're going to move forward together in this civic society that we're facing is that there is a pitfall. There is no, I need to wait till later because later is now, right? Yeah. So I know some people could be doomsdayers. Some people could be all kinds of a myriad of things in between. And Black people gamut them all from the mountains to the area. But the one thing we still have significant problems with, and that is unifying within ourselves to be with others. And that is that alignment. That's that community alignment. So if you have a hard time aligning yourself, even with yourself and with your partner, it's going to be tough for you to help us build the community we need you to be part of.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
So
well
good.
said. Well said. That's a great way to end the podcast. Thank you guys for stopping by. I really appreciate you, Dr. Paul Dyer, Jeannie, and we are out of here. Peace. Bye.